"Get out of my sight, you worthless child!" The scream tore through the icy night like shattered glass. Little Anna stumbled backward as her stepmother, Marjorie, seized her by the arm and hurled her out the front door. The cold bit through Anna's thin sweater, and before she could speak, a battered suitcase came flying after her. It burst open on the steps, spilling old clothes, torn socks, and a faded stuffed bear onto the snow. Marjorie's breath steamed in the winter air. "Your father left nothing but you and trouble," she hissed, kicking the suitcase farther into the drift. "You're dead weight, Anna, useless!" Anna's knees struck the frozen step, pain shooting up her legs. She scrambled to grab her things, but the wind tore them from her hands. Her fingers were numb, her lips trembling. "Please, I'll be good," she whispered, clutching the one thing she still had, the bear with one button eye. Before Marjorie could strike again, a low voice cut through the storm. "That's enough." A tall man stood at the curb, the beam of a street lamp gleaming off his silver hair. His coat collar was turned up against the snow, and behind him idled a sleek black sedan, its headlights slicing through the blizzard. Mr. Rylan Ward, known across Boston as a quiet billionaire and philanthropist, took a single step forward. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" he asked, his tone calm but cold. "Throwing a child out in a storm?" Marjorie froze. The anger on her face vanished, replaced by a trembling smile. "Oh, Mr. Ward, you startled me," she said sweetly. "It's a misunderstanding. My poor stepdaughter gets dramatic when she's scolded. I'd never—" She knelt beside Anna suddenly, her voice dripping with fake tenderness. "Sweetheart, you know Mommy loves you." Anna blinked in confusion. Only moments ago, Marjorie had called her trash. Now she was speaking like sugar, but Rylan wasn't fooled. "Children don't end up half-dressed in a blizzard by accident," he said, pulling his phone from his coat pocket. "I saw everything. I'm calling the police." Marjorie's false charm cracked. "There's no need for that," she snapped before forcing another smile. "But of course, if that's what you think is best." Rylan looked down at Anna, his voice softening. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. You're coming with me tonight." He draped his wool coat around her shaking shoulders and lifted her into his arms. Behind him, Marjorie stood frozen in the doorway, smiling too widely as the car pulled away, carrying Anna into a night that would change her life forever. But what Rylan didn't yet realize was that saving Anna would awaken ghosts he'd buried long ago. The car door shut with a deep thud, sealing Anna inside a cocoon of warmth and leather. Outside, the snow roared against the windows like a wild sea. She sat silent, clutching her one-eyed teddy bear so tightly it seemed ready to burst. Rylan slid into the seat beside her, his expression unreadable. The driver met his eyes in the mirror. "Home," Rylan said quietly. As the car glided through Boston's deserted streets, the only sound was the storm and the low hum of the engine. Anna sat rigid, her small frame trembling beneath his oversized coat. The warmth of the car couldn't melt the chill of what had just happened. Rylan glanced at her, his tone gentle. "How old are you, Anna?" She hesitated. 6, he nodded. "Do you know where your father is?" Her lips moved, but no words came at first. Then barely above a whisper. "He works far away. Aunt Marjorie says he might never come back." Rylan's jaw tightened. So the father was alive but absent. That explained the neglect. He turned his gaze to the passing city lights, his reflection faint in the glass. For years, he had promised himself never to step into another child's pain. Not after losing his own daughter. Not after failing once before. Yet here he was. A lost child asleep against his arm, her breath fogging the window, her tiny hand still clutching that ruined bear. The car stopped at the gates of Rylan's Beacon Hill townhouse, a towering structure of stone and light. As the gate swung open, Anna's eyes widened. The place looked like something out of a dream. Tall windows glowing with golden light, a wreath on the door glimmering softly through the snow. Inside, warmth flooded over them. Marble floors, chandeliers, the faint scent of cedar and cinnamon. A gray-haired woman appeared at the top of the stairs, wrapped in a shawl. "Mr. Ward!" she gasped, eyes landing on the small figure in his arms. "Dios mío." "The poor child." "This is Mrs. Ramirez," Rylan said softly. "She'll help you." Mrs. Ramirez's voice turned gentle as she approached. "Come, my sweet. We'll get you warm." Anna hesitated, then slid her small hand into the woman's. For the first time that night, Her fear eased, just a little. As Mrs. Ramirez led her upstairs for a bath and cocoa, Rylan stood alone in the grand foyer, staring at the fire he'd just lit. The flames danced across the polished stone, chasing shadows from the corners. For 2 long years, his home had been silent, but tonight, for the first time, it felt like life had found its way back in. Yet peace never lingers long, and before dawn, a knock at the door would test Rylan's resolve in ways he never expected. The storm broke just before dawn. Boston lay buried beneath a white hush, rooftops softened, streets erased, the world wrapped in stillness. Inside the Beacon Hill townhouse, the fire still burned low, its glow flickering over Rylan Ward's tired face. He hadn't slept. Every time Anna stirred on the sofa, he'd opened his eyes, afraid she'd vanish like a dream. Now she lay curled beneath a wool blanket, the one-eyed bear tucked under her chin. For the first time in who knew how long, her breathing was steady, peaceful. Rylan sipped cold coffee, watching snow drift past the tall windows, when a firm knock echoed through the house. Mrs. Ramirez appeared almost instantly, her shawl pulled tight. "That will be the police," she said quietly. Rylan crossed to the door, every movement deliberate. When he opened it, 2 figures stood on the steps, a uniformed officer and a woman in a dark wool coat. The woman's eyes were kind but sharp, her breath visible in the freezing air. "Mr. Ward?" she asked. He nodded. "I'm Clara Donovan, Child Protective Services. This is Officer Hale. You called about a possible case of endangerment?" "Yes," Rylan said. "The child's inside. She was thrown out in last night's storm." They stepped into the warmth, shaking off the cold. The officer's notebook flipped open, pen ready. Clara's gaze swept the foyer, the fire, the coat draped on the chair, the faint smell of cocoa. Then it landed on the sofa, where Anna was beginning to stir. She blinked at the strangers, clutching her bear, confusion clouding her face. Clara crouched low, her tone soft. "Hello, sweetheart." "My name's Clara. Don't be afraid. We just want to make sure you're all right." Anna's eyes darted to Rylan. She said nothing. "It's all right," he murmured. "They're here to help." Clara noticed the bruises along the girl's wrist, faint but undeniable. She exchanged a glance with Officer Hale, who scribbled a note. Then she asked gently, "Anna, can you tell me what happened last night?" The child's lips trembled. She buried her face in the bear instead. Rylan's voice broke the silence. "I saw her stepmother throw her out. She told the girl, 'You're nothing but trouble.' I couldn't stand by." Clara's eyes met his, steady, measuring, but not unkind. She nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Ward. For now, she'll remain under CPS care. Here, if that's all right with you. Removing her too soon might do more harm." Rylan exhaled, relief flickering through the fatigue. "Yes, she stays." Behind them, Anna looked up, wide-eyed, hopeful, uncertain. For the first time, someone had said the words she never thought she'd hear. She stays. But safety was never simple, and soon, the past Rylan tried to bury would collide with Anna's fight to stay free. By mid-morning, the storm had melted into a gray, dripping calm. Sunlight slipped through the tall windows, pooling across marble floors and glinting off silver picture frames. For the first time in years, the grand townhouse didn't feel empty. Anna sat at the dining table, her small frame almost lost in the massive chair. A plate of golden pancakes steamed before her, syrup glistening under the light. She glanced around nervously, at the chandelier, the crackling fire, the strange stillness of this new place. Mrs. Ramirez set down a glass of milk. "Eat, Nina," she said warmly. "It will make you strong again." Anna hesitated, then picked up her fork. The first bite made her eyes widen. It had been weeks, maybe months, since she'd tasted food made with care. Across the table, Rylan watched quietly, coffee in hand. Each movement she made, each cautious glance, each shy sip, told a story of fear that had become habit. When she finally looked up, syrup on her chin, her voice was barely a whisper. "Will my daddy know where I am?" Rylan set his cup down. "We'll make sure he does," he said softly. "But until then, you're safe here." Her gaze searched his face for signs of the lies she'd grown used to. Finding none, she nodded, though her fingers still clung to the bear in her lap. The moment was fragile, warm, real, until the doorbell shattered it. Mrs. Ramirez froze. Rylan rose, his instincts tightening like wire. He opened the heavy oak door to find Marjorie standing there, wrapped in a fur-trimmed coat, her eyes bright with something between relief and calculation. "Mr. Ward," she began sweetly. "Thank heavens." "I've been frantic. Anna ran out after a silly misunderstanding." Rylan's expression hardened. "I didn't misunderstand. I saw you throw her out." Her smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. "You misread it. Children exaggerate. I was disciplining her, that's all." Anna's small voice floated from the hallway. "That's not true." Marjorie's gaze flicked toward her, and for a heartbeat her mask slipped, revealing a flash of fury. Then just as quickly, it was gone. "Darling," she cooed, "come to me. Let's go home." Rylan stepped between them, his voice low and sharp. "You're not taking her anywhere." He pulled out his phone, dialing the number Officer Hale had given him. "Yes, it's Ward. The stepmother's here. You might want to come by." Marjorie's painted smile cracked completely. "You think you can keep her from me?" "You're just a lonely man trying to play hero." "Maybe," Rylan said, "but at least I'm not the kind of person who throws a child into the snow." Her eyes blazed, but she turned on her heel as the sound of approaching sirens cut through the air. Inside, Anna pressed close to Rylan's side. "She was smiling at you," she whispered. "She never smiles at me." Rylan crouched, meeting her eyes. "That's because people who lie wear masks, Anna, and hers is breaking. But masks never just break, they shatter. And when they do, the truth cuts everyone standing too close." The sirens faded into the distance, leaving behind a heavy, echoing quiet. Rylan stood at the window, his reflection framed by falling snow. Behind him, Anna sat on the couch, tracing her fingers along the edge of a cocoa mug. Mrs. Ramirez had made it just how she liked. Extra sweet, with a swirl of cream. And for the first time, Anna looked almost content. Almost. Her small feet dangled above the rug. Her teddy bear perched loyally beside her. "Will she come back?" she asked. Rylan turned from the window. "She'll try," he said honestly. "But she won't get past me." Anna's eyes studied him, as if testing the weight of his promise. Then she nodded, quiet but certain. Moments later, the knock came, softer this time. When Rylan opened the door, Clara Donovan from Child Services stood there again, clipboard under her arm, her expression calm but focused. "Mr. Ward," she said, "thank you for your cooperation. We've reviewed the initial report." She stepped inside, removing her gloves. For now, Anna will stay under temporary guardianship here, under CPS supervision. It's the safest arrangement until her father can be located. Rylan inclined his head. "As long as she's safe." Anna peeked from behind the sofa, clutching her bear. Clara crouched again, smiling warmly. "How are you feeling today, sweetheart?" "Warm," Anna whispered. "That's good," Clara replied gently. "You'll stay here for a little while. Mr. Ward will take care of you, and I'll check in often." "You don't have to be afraid anymore." The words seemed to lift a weight from the air. Rylan felt it too, a fragile peace settling over the house. That night, as snow whispered against the windows, Rylan sat by the piano in the dim glow of the fire. His fingers hovered above the keys. It had been 2 years since he'd touched them, not since the night his own daughter's laughter had vanished from this room. He pressed a single note. The sound was hesitant, trembling. Anna's small voice drifted from the doorway. "Play again." He turned, startled, but she was smiling, soft, hopeful. He played another note, then another. The melody faltered, but it grew. Anna patted closer, humming along, her voice a fragile echo of warmth. For the first time in years, Rylan's home didn't sound like grief. It sounded like life, and as the fire glowed, Mrs. Ramirez watched silently from the hall, whispering to herself, "Señor has opened his heart again." But peace built on secrets never lasts. And soon, one message would remind Rylan that Marjorie wasn't finished with them yet. The next morning broke gray and still. Boston's skyline loomed beyond the frosted windows, quiet under a curtain of mist. Inside the townhouse, the faint scent of cinnamon lingered. Mrs. Ramirez humming softly as she prepared breakfast. Rylan sat at the dining table, a stack of unread emails before him. But his eyes weren't on the screen. They were on the folded blanket at the far end of the sofa, where Anna had fallen asleep the night before, her bear tucked under her chin, a small smile softening her features. He hadn't realized how deeply that sight could quiet the noise in his mind. Then his phone buzzed. An unknown number. He opened the message. You can't keep her forever. She belongs to me. The words sliced through the morning calm. Rylan stared at them, his jaw tightening. He knew that voice, that entitlement, even through text. Marjorie. The woman who spoke about belonging as if love were ownership. As if cruelty could ever be claimed as care. Mrs. Ramirez glanced up from the kitchen. Senor, something wrong? Nothing I can't handle, he said, though his grip on the phone told another story. That afternoon, he made a call to a name he hadn't spoken in years. Bear Connolly, a gravelly voice answered. You don't call unless something's burning. It is, Rylan replied. I need information, but fast. The woman's name is Marjorie Reed. I want everything. Debts, history, anyone she's hurt or used. Bear chuckled. Ah, the digging kind of job. You always did like justice dressed in fire. This isn't about justice, Rylan said quietly. It's about a child. Understood, Bear said. Give me 2 days. I'll find your skeletons. When the call ended, Rylan exhaled slowly. The house felt heavier somehow, the air charged with something unseen. Upstairs, he could hear Anna humming, a small, unsteady tune that rose and fell like a heartbeat. Later that evening, she wandered into the study, barefoot, her curls still damp from a bath. You look mad, she said, her voice small. Did I do something wrong? Rylan shook his head, softening. Not you. Never you, she nodded, gripping her teddy bear tighter. Aunt Marjorie used to smile when she lied. You don't. Rylan felt the ache return, a mix of sorrow and fury. That's because truth doesn't need to hide, Anna. She tilted her head, thinking. Then I like truth better. He smiled faintly. So do I. Outside, the snow began again, soft, silent, but relentless. And as it fell, Rylan knew that peace had just turned into war. Because in 2 days, Bear would call back, and what he uncovered about Marjorie would make Rylan realize the danger had only just begun. 2 days later, the phone rang just as dusk swallowed the last of the light. Rylan was by the fire, paperwork spread across the table, legal documents, CPS reports, sleepless notes. The world outside was silent, save for the soft fall of snow against the glass. He answered on the first ring. Bear! Walker, the gruff voice rasped. You weren't kidding. The woman's a mess. Rylan leaned forward, every muscle tense. Tell me. She's up to her neck in debt. Credit cards, gambling tabs, and one bad loan to a guy you wouldn't want knocking on your door. I also found a report. Minor domestic dispute last year. No charges, but it's in the record, Rylan exhaled slowly. She's dangerous. Worse than that, Bear said. She's desperate. And desperate people don't stop. They burn everything before they drown. The line went quiet. Then Bear added softer, You're doing the right thing, Rylan. Don't back off now. When the call ended, Rylan set the phone down and stared into the flames. The orange light carved lines across his face, shadows of the man he used to be and the one he was becoming again. He had once sworn off saving anyone. Now, saving this child felt like the only thing keeping him alive. From the hallway came the soft creak of floorboards. Anna appeared wearing an oversized sweater, her curls wild from sleep. She rubbed her eyes. Can't sleep? He asked. She shook her head. Bad dreams. Come here. She padded over, climbing into the armchair beside him. The fire painted her face in gold and shadow. Her eyes were heavy but awake, watching the flames dance. Was it about her? He asked. Anna nodded faintly. She was shouting again. Only this time I wasn't scared. You were there. Rylan's throat tightened. You don't have to be afraid anymore, Anna. I promise you. She looked up at him, small, fragile, yet filled with a kind of quiet strength he hadn't seen before. You always keep your promises, she whispered. He smiled, just barely. I try. They sat in silence, the fire crackling softly, her head resting against his arm. For the first time, the ache inside him, the one that had haunted him since his daughter's death, didn't feel so unbearable. Because in Anna's presence, the house wasn't a tomb anymore. It was a heartbeat. But peace built on truth always draws enemies. And as Rylan prepared to face the courts, Marjorie was already sharpening her lies. The courthouse loomed like a fortress of stone and echo. Reporters crowded the steps, flashes bursting against the gray Boston sky. Rylan kept his arm firmly around Anna as they climbed, her tiny hand clutching the worn bear that had survived everything with her. Inside, the air hummed with tension. Marjorie was already seated at the plaintiff's table, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed. But her eyes, beneath all that polish, burned with panic. She had brought a new lawyer, slick and smiling, his briefcase shining like armor. The judge entered. Silence fell. "Mrs. Reed," the judge began, "you've been accused of neglect, emotional cruelty, and reckless endangerment of a minor." "Do you have anything to say?" Marjorie rose, her voice honeyed. "Your Honor, I love my stepdaughter. I made mistakes, but who hasn't? Mr. Ward is a wealthy stranger who has manipulated this situation. I only want my child back." Rylan sat still, his face unreadable, his pulse a drumbeat beneath the surface. When his lawyer stood, the shift in tone was immediate, calm, steady, surgical. "Your Honor, this isn't about wealth or pity. It's about evidence." He handed over a folder, Bear Connolly's report. Bank records, witness statements, and finally the audio file. The courtroom hushed as Marjorie's own voice filled the speakers. "That brat's my ticket. Once her dad's gone, the kid's mine, and so's the money. Walker thinks he's a hero. He'll get bored and toss her back." Gasps rippled through the room. Marjorie's smile froze, her mask finally cracking. That recording is taken out of context," she cried, rising to her feet. "I was angry." The judge's gavel slammed once. "Enough! Sit down." When the silence settled again, the judge turned to Anna. "Would you like to say anything, sweetheart?" The room held its breath. Anna clutched her bear, then looked up. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. "She said Daddy wouldn't believe me. She said if I told, she'd make me sorry. Mr. Ward told the truth. He didn't lie." Tears welled in Clara Donovan's eyes. Even the clerk paused his pen. The judge leaned forward, voice firm but kind. "Thank you, Anna. You are very brave." Moments later, the gavel fell again, the sound of justice echoing through the room. Temporary guardianship remains with Mr. Ward under CPS supervision. Mrs. Reed, you are barred from any contact until further review. Marjorie's fury erupted, but it was too late. She was escorted out, her voice trailing into silence. Outside the courthouse, the snow had stopped. Anna stood beside Rylan on the steps, her small hand reaching for his. "Does this mean I'm safe now?" she asked. Rylan looked down, the faintest smile breaking through the exhaustion. "It means you're home." And for the first time in years, he meant every word. But as the winter sun broke through the clouds, Rylan knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something fragile, precious, and worth protecting for the rest of his life.